What is going on, my people? What is going on? It's G. We're back in the building and here to drop another video for you guys. Hopefully, just a quick video taking a look, as you guys can obviously see on the screen, about Liverpool's young centre back Jarell Quansah. Now, played last night for Liverpool in the Europa League. Liverpool obviously running out 4-0 winners, meaning they will obviously qualify for the next stage of the Europa League. And as I remember it, they will qualify straight through to, I think it's the round of 16, I want to say it is, as opposed to if you finish second, I believe, in the Europa League, you have to go through, I think, the round of 32, and then, you go to the 16s. But because we've topped the group now, Liverpool obviously automatically get through to the round of 16. And Jarell Quansah obviously has played a few games in the Europa League this season, played a few games in the Premier League this season, played in the Carabao Cup as well. He's really, really performed. And I just wanted to take a quick look at him, in terms of how far do we think he can go. Obviously, everyone's calling the baby Van Dijk and all that kind of stuff. So, just to kind of take a quick look at him, how far he can go. What do we think of him at the moment? Was Klopp right? Mystic Meg himself, in regards to not wanting to necessarily sign a new centre back, and having that faith, in Jarell Quansah. But yeah, we'll take a look at it, guys. Make sure you smash that like button, make sure you share, and make sure you do subscribe to the damn channel. Let's get into it.
Through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
So, Jarell Quansah. As I mentioned before, man, it's been good performances from him, not even just like last night or anything like that. I think that just kind of added, to everything. And I think one of the things that we're seeing this season, most notably, is obviously Liverpool in Europa League. So of course, it's a case of, when you're in, that in the Europa League, we're not in the Champions League, so we're not facing. Obviously, you could face similar type of teams, in the Champions League, but you're going to face obviously the lesser teams in the Europa League. And what we're seeing, in my opinion, is that we're kind of watching all the fringe kind of young players and stuff like that. Obviously, this is the kind of tournament, which is probably why I never really rated this tournament. Do you know what I mean? Because you can almost, it's almost like a Carabao Cup tournament, or Carabao Cup type of tournament, in terms of the type of quality of teams that we've got in here. Even in Liverpool's group, to lose last USG, not good team. The fact that Liverpool lost that game to Toulouse, was a shock. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that we have a God-given right to go and win every single game, because you don't. It's a game of football. At the end of the day, anything can happen, like it did against Toulouse. But ultimately, we're not facing, yet anyway. I mean, let's get through the tournament first, but there's not really that many good teams as it is. Even if the teams who drop down from the Champions League, yes, that will make it a bit more interesting, so to speak, but there's not that many good teams, so you can afford to play these kind of players. So this is where players like Jarell Quansah, the Endos, the Dokes, Kai Gordon was on the bench and stuff like that last night. This is where these kind of players, Kelleher, can obviously get some games. This is where you throw them in, and this is where you allow them to get that game time, especially the further you progress in the tournament. This is where you allow them to get that experience, European experience and stuff like that. And Jarell Quansah, when we're looking at someone like him, it's so interesting because obviously Klopp mentioned, he mentioned last night, but before the season had obviously even started, we were all of us, myself included, talking about potentially signing a new centre back and stuff like that. And Klopp spoke yesterday. He said, that couldn't be better news in terms of Quansah coming into the senior squad. That couldn't be better news for the club, to be honest. I think before this season, a lot of people told us we should buy a centre-half. We knew we had Jarell. Did we know that he will show up like this? No, not exactly, but we were pretty hopeful. So the future is bright. So obviously, Klopp's, look, he's the manager at the end of the day, and he's one of the best managers out there. So does he... Obviously, he knows more than we do. Do you know what I mean? Do we know more than Klopp? No, we won't know more than Klopp at the end of the day, kind of thing. But we will always have differences of opinions, you know. And I'm still of the opinion, to be honest, that Liverpool should have still bought a better centre back, because the reality of it is, did he know? You know, sorry. I was going to say, did he know that, you know, some players are going to get better? He doesn't know that. He's kind of gambling on the fact that he hopes that Gomez, Matic, Konate, Van Dijk, all of these guys will either stay one injury free, but we know that's not always that's not likely to happen. But more so, do we think that these players are going to perform this season? Now, that was a really, really big gamble from Klopp. Now, and this is where I guess this credit in the bank stuff that everyone used to talk about last season and stuff like that, that's where this then comes, you know, into it, because the reality is it could have gone either way for Klopp. Do you know what I mean? And for Liverpool, do you know what I mean? We could have been in a situation whereby these guys don't get better, or they perform to the kind of levels that they were performing to last season, and then we're stuck. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that he's not wanted to sign a centre back, and he knew that he had Jarell there, and obviously he stated there he didn't know he was going to turn out to be as good as he's been. No one's going to realistically know. With players, you have to throw them into the environment first. But the fact that he didn't want to sign a centre back, you know, again, like I said, even now I'm still sitting here and I'm still like, I probably still would have signed a centre back regardless. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you didn't know that this was going to be the end result, if that kind of, or the result, you know, thus far, kind of thing when it comes to Jarell. And I think that it almost would have been dangerous, almost, you know, because you could have been throwing Jarell, you know, into a situation where team is, and I still think, you know, the defence, as much as we're not, I know people are going to throw the stats up. You're going to say Liverpool not conceding that many goals, and we're not. And credit to the team, credit to the staff and stuff like that in that regards. But we give up a lot of chances, in my opinion. You know, in terms of the goals that we probably should concede. You know, we should have conceded a couple last night. You know, just the sheer fact that they had poor finishing. You know, poor getting into that final third and stuff like that. You know, it was just poor from their kind of standards. And I feel like we've been getting, again, like I say, it's not we won 4-0, so I'm not trying to detract from that. But ultimately, there were moments in that game where you did think, yep, they probably should score here, or they will score here, kind of thing. And luckily, they didn't. You know, so again, we keep getting away with it, I know it's been, 13 or whatever games in the Premier League and the 5 Europa League games plus the Carabao Cup games, but I just don't feel like that's going to be something that's sustainable, you know, throughout a season. You know, people start to, ultimately, people think that we're not clicking, nobody else is clicking at this current moment in time. You know, the Man Cities, the Arsenals, even the Chelseas, Tottenhams, Villas, all these teams, I don't feel like they're at their peak, so to speak. You know, they're just more still, everyone's still kind of finding their way, you know, slowly into the new season. And we'll start to see, I think we'll start to see teams performing better towards the latter half of this season. So, you know, after December. So right now we're getting away with it. You know, we're getting away with giving up chances and stuff like that. Teams are not scoring. You know, we've got Ali sometimes who stays to us. We've got team just doesn't hit the target and things like that. And that's where I feel throwing a Jarell Quansah potentially into that type of environment could have been a little bit dangerous. Now, obviously, big up Cherry, because Jerry will probably tell you, look, if you're old enough, you're good enough, and that is 100% correct. You know, in terms of sometimes you got to just put people into these type of environments. Again, 100% correct. I do feel you do need to, if you feel, and that it's down to the manager, if he feels that this player, Jarell Quansah, if he feels that he's good enough to be able to play, you know, in whatever games and stuff like that, then throw him in. Hey, do you know what I mean? I guess we do baptism of fire. Let's see, you know, what he can do ultimately. And if I'm being honest, I've seen Jarell Quansah this season, watched him in the youth, watched him for England. Could I have sat here and said that I thought that he was going to be as good as he is right now? Nah, I think I don't see how I would have seen that, to be honest with you. I don't think he really exhibited that. And considering the type of centre backs that we have got and the way that we do play, I feel like it would have been tough for someone like him to potentially have just come in and taken the world alight, almost. But he's done that, and I have to give him props for that, in the way that he's kind of come in, kind of in that left centre back position. He's made that his own. This is his heat map from the Europa League this season. As I said, making that left centre back position his own. I know, obviously, everybody keeps calling him, the baby Van Dijk and stuff like that. I wouldn't call him that. I don't think that they're right now. Anyway, I couldn't call him. I don't like comparing old players to the, to the young players and stuff like that. I like to let them forge their own path. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think he's a Van Dijk type of player, really. Anyway, I know they've got similarities, but ultimately, I feel like he'll be a bit different, than a Van Dijk anyway. I think he's going to be a better dribbler than a Van Dijk, once he keeps progressing, because you even see the way that he likes to bring the ball out from the back and stuff like that. It's very Matip-esque, in terms of the coolness, the calmness to be able to bring that ball out. He can find these kind of cute little passes. Not to say Van Dijk can't do those kind of passes in terms of not the long balls, because Van Dijk's got that down to a T. I mean, the cute passes into the midfield and stuff like that. I think he'll be better at, I don't think he's better than Van Dijk at the moment at that, but I can see that he's got that already in his game, whereas I don't feel like Van Dijk necessarily is someone who has that in his game. He does it from time to time kind of thing, but again, this is where I feel Jarell Quansah is going to be able to develop that, in the future. And then again, the similarities of being so cool and calm when it is, time to defend. He doesn't just rush in, and I think that again is so important, for a centre back. I mean, you can, when you've got like a centre back pairing, sometimes you can have one who's a bit rash, someone who is going to just be the Kanate, so to speak, and then you've got the Jarell Quansah, just calm it down a little bit. You know what I mean? Let me just mop up the situation and stuff like that. That's exactly like Van Dijk. He's got the long balls, just like a Van Dijk as well. So again, there's those similarities, but of course needs the experience and stuff like that, before he can really start, we can start calling him, those kind of things. But I think right now, I don't like hearing. I find it so cringe as well. Let's just leave all of that, that kind of stuff out. Let him be his own person. Let him be Jarell Quansah, not Van Dijk air and stuff like that. Because then I feel like it places so much pressure on these kind of players. Especially young players. You start even the Jude Bellingham thing. Oh, he's just like Zidane this, Zidane that, and I'm like, no. The only similarities they got is that they both wear number 5. Do you know what I mean? Let's not call them. One was an elite, great midfielder who, is probably one of, if not the best, in some people's eyes, best midfielder of this generation kind of thing. Jude Bellingham isn't that yet. Do you know what I mean? Let him get to that position first. Maybe then you can potentially compare, but then even then, he'll be his own type of person. He's already scoring more goals than a Zidane would ever have done, in a season. So, different type of players. And I think that's the same here with Jarell Quansah. What's also interesting with someone like Quansah is that it's funny because when I look at, like I said, he's got shades of like Van Dijk in him in terms of the coolness, calmness and stuff like that. But I think that's just him normally anyway. I think we would have seen that regardless of anything. And the shades of obviously like a Matip at times. But then he is quick. He is quite strong as well. So again, he's got that Kanate in him, so he's almost like a mold of all three of those guys, in terms of the type of defender he is, but he's quite a smart defender. And that's one of the things that I really, really do like about him thus far, in terms of what I've seen of him this season. And to be honest, he's impressed me the most this season above everyone else, because he's been able to kind of come in, as a young centre-back. Again, like I say, the way that Liverpool play, the way that we set up, the chances that we give up in games and stuff like that can make even the best of centre-backs look shit. Do you know what I mean? So the fact that he's been able to kind of come in and display the performances that he has displayed, as I mentioned before, 4 Europa League games, 4 Premier League games, 2 Carabao Cup games, and obviously played one in the under-21 competition as well. 11 games this season, got himself an assist as well. These are good minutes that he's, if I just put that back up there again, 678 minutes that he's obviously got so far this season. These are good minutes, man. These are good minutes, especially from someone that you'd probably consider to be your first, second, third, fourth, fifth choice centre-back almost kind of thing. Then obviously being able to put Joe Gomez in at that right-back slot, in that right-back position, that's really, really good minutes for someone of that kind of ilk. And for me, sometimes I sit there and think to myself, in some games, of course, look, you're going to want to play a Matip or you're going to want to play a Kanate, just depending on the threat. These guys, really, what they will have over Quansah is just the experience of being, or playing in certain positions, in certain situations, should I say, sorry. Obviously, Quansah hasn't got that yet, and he will inevitably get that, you know, with time. But sometimes I sit there and think, I mean, we signed Kanate, and he was supposed to be, and again, not to say that Kanate won't get to that, you know, to that place, but I look at the two centre backs, and I'm almost sitting there thinking, outside of the experience that Kanate has obviously got, I don't find too much in his game that I'm like, yeah, you're light years ahead of Jarell Quansah. I like I say, it would be the experience, and obviously he's stronger, he's faster, he's quicker, kind of thing. He's got I can't even say he's got the passing, because Jarell Quansah's kind of got that dribbling. Jarell Quansah's kind of got that positional awareness. Jarell Quansah's kind of got that. Obviously, one's playing right centre back, one's playing left sided centre back. Obviously, the two positions, I almost feel like they're two different roles because of the right back and the left back. Obviously, more time you're going to have Trent from that right back position, someone who's going to keep bombing forward. Would be interesting to see how Jarell Quansah would have done if you had put him into that position, instead of putting him left centre back, where yes, your left back's going to bomb forward every now and again, and you know, join in with play and stuff like that. But it's not so vital to the team, so to speak. You know, that they go into certain positions, like Trent dropping into midfield and stuff like that. You know, it would have been interesting, but ultimately he does play that left hand side, and maybe then the future partnership could be a potential. You know, having Jarell Quansah left-sided centre-back and then having Kanate right-sided centre-back, or Gomez or whoever else, kind of thing. But I do go back to that notion, you know, that Klopp saying, you know, everyone was saying, you know, should have bought a centre-half and stuff like that this season. I still think we should have. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, hindsight is a wonderful thing. We all had eyes, obviously, on Levi Colwill. Do I still think Colwill is a better defender? I would say yes, just by a little bit. Like now seeing Quansah, I'll still say yeah. I still think Colwill is a better defender overall, but it's not by the massive margin that I would have assumed it would have been. You know, with obviously Quansah coming in, I didn't know that Quansah was going to be, you know, this good. But again, he's playing. I find it a little bit hard judging the team. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I do find it a little bit hard judging some players in some games, because again, you're playing against Lask, Toulouse, USG kind of thing. Those are the kind of games I'm like, I can't really judge you either way. Like, really and truly, all I can, it's really, you just need to perform at your kind of level, and that should be kind of fine. Anything below that, that's when we start to really talk about it, start getting concerned, and, you know, things like that. But with Jarell Quansah, difference is I've seen him against Wolves. Now, in that Wolves game where Liverpool absolutely dog shit in that first half, you know, 1-0 down, playing awful, you know, Klopp's had to ring the changes and stuff like that. And then second half, obviously, we then turned it on to win the game. I think it was 3-1 in the end. In that game, I felt that Quansah was excellent in that game. I really, really felt like, yo, above everybody else here on the pitch, he's got all these experienced players on the pitch, the Mo Salahs, the Szoboszlais. I think he was playing with Matip that day, you know, Alisson behind him, and Robbo, and whoever. Like, he had all of these experienced players in front of him, and I still felt that he was the one who was the most mature, if I'm being honest. He was the one who, you know, was putting in that kind of performance that said, guys, yo, like, we need to pattern up here. Do you know what I mean? We need to start showing that we're Liverpool Football Club. We are good. This is crap. You know what I mean? We need to pattern up. He was the guy, the calmness on the ball. You know, he was. I felt like I can't remember the game vividly off the top of my head in terms of if that goal was his fault or anything like that. So if it was, then fair enough. But in terms of the overall play, when I watched him play in that game, from what I can remember thinking back then anyway, was he seems to be the only one who is switched on at this current moment in time, which is obviously a worry, because he shouldn't be the one. You know, he should be one of many. He shouldn't be him, you know, the 2021-year-old, however old he is, you know, the one who's kind of switched on when we've got all of these other players who are supposed to be more experienced in these kind of situations and stuff like that. But he was the one that I looked at and I said, yeah, man, that was a really, really good performance. And that performance really made me start to think, because I don't like, listen, we'll give props where props is due all the time. Do you know what I mean? It's not a case of not giving props when people deserve it. But at the same time, I do think at times it can be a little bit premature. You know, we start saying, oh, he's this, he's that. And that's, again, hence the reason why I still have Levi Colwill ahead of him, just purely on the sheer fact that Levi Colwill has done it consistently for longer. And he's been in more situations where I can see him, against certain teams and stuff like that. At the moment, we're being very safe, obviously, with Quansah. Because he is so young, he's very, very inexperienced. So we are being a little bit safe. And on top of that, we've got other centre-backs. Do you know what I mean? We've got the Matips, the Gomez, the Konates, all players who are playing pretty decently this season in comparison to last season. So, it is one of those kind of things. So him getting these minutes isn't really a problem for me, kind of thing. I reckon it'll probably be something like next season where potentially not say he'd moan about it, but you don't want the development to stall. You can't let it stall out, kind of thing. And then if we do make Champions League next season as well, that's where you're then like, okay, cool. Now the quality is stepping up a little bit. Notoriously, when we've been in the Champions League, Klopp doesn't really rotate like that. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to see too many situations where Keller is going to go and go in the Champions League away to Atletico Madrid. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to say no at this current moment in time because I've not seen it in previous Champions League campaigns, where we're going to do that. But again, anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. So where now it's all safe, everyone's all, nice and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, if you then look forward, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But when you do start to look a little bit forward, that's where I guess my PTSD starts to kick in with someone like Klopp, because I'm like, I feel like you'll start reverting back to type, at some point in time. But that's next season. We'll deal with next season when it comes. In terms of this season, like I said, Jarell Quansah, for me, has been a really, really good player for Liverpool. And to be honest, soon he's going to start moving up that list. Do you know what I mean? At the moment, he would be considered to be the fifth choice. So you've got Van Dijk, you've got Konate, you've got Matip, you've got Gomez, and then you've got him. Now, where he gets maybe where he moves up a little bit is that you play Gomez maybe right back, kind of thing, and he tussles with Trent depending on the fixture and, et cetera, et cetera. And Gomez can also play left back as well. So, Gomez is where you're like, he is primarily he's a centre back, but he can also fill in all the other slots in the defence itself. So maybe you move him to the side. You just move him to the side. Then he moves up. So cool. Now you're saying your fourth choice centre back in the team. That's pretty good. For someone who's going to get games, and he's already got, as I showed you there, he has already got himself 11 games, this season. You're then thinking, okay, cool. Now, I'm going to assume he will play the last, provided he don't get injured or anything like that, touch wood. He will then obviously play the last game of the Europa League. That means he's played 5 Europa League games. He might play potentially a Premier League game. We have got, I think, 9 games in 27 days, kind of thing, between now and the end of December. So, a lot of fixtures, players are going to get tired. Players might start getting injured and stuff like that. He may have to come into the fold. He's obviously going to come off the bench potentially in some games where we need to shore things up, all these kind of different scenarios. So it's going to be interesting again to see how he does through this period of time as well. Or it might be a situation where he doesn't even play. And we don't see him until January. You know what I mean? I've seen that with Klopp, with some players where they play well in these games, and he just think, oh yeah, I want to see this guy a little bit more, and and then we don't see them. Do you know what I mean? Like we never ever, not never ever seen them, but we just don't see them for time, kind of thing, because maybe Klopp wants to trust the players that he's got here, and he does have that trust in certain players. So, these players will obviously play in these kind of games, etc., etc. So we may not even then see him after the last Europa League game. We might not see him then until, the FA Cup game, as an example. Again, no idea. We'll just have to obviously wait and see. But at this moment in time, for me anyway, in my personal opinion, he has impressed me the most this season. I think you've got obviously the other players, the Van Dijks, the Alissons, the Mo Salahs and stuff like that, who have obviously been excellent themselves this season, but they haven't been above anything that I've ever seen from them before. I've seen them do this kind of stuff before. I probably would say they're a bit lower than the level that I've seen them reach all in their kind of peak. Whereas with Quansah, he's an unknown entity. We don't know how good he is going to be. We just have a thought that he might be this good. He could be as good as that defender. And that's why the baby Van Dijk thing, I'm like, I don't know about all of that. I don't think anybody's going to be at that kind of peak of a Van Dijk or anything like that. But they can still be good defenders. They're still, just because people don't reach the peak of a Van Dijk doesn't mean they can't be a good defender. And I think with Quansah, that's exactly what we're going to see. And I think players like Konate and that, in my opinion, potentially might have to start looking over his shoulder. Obviously, the difference is Quansah's the left-sided centre-back. I'm not saying he can't play right-sided, but I feel that's where he's most comfortable. That's where we see the kind of best of him anyway. So Konate might be safe, so to speak, because he's not going to dispel Virgil van Dijk anytime soon. But then that's also another thing to think about, moving forward. If he's not going to displace a Virgil van Dijk anytime soon, I'm not saying he can't play alongside Virgil, but he's a left-sided centre-back. You wouldn't put Virgil right-sided centre-back just to accommodate someone else. You know what I mean? If that's his position, that's his position. Now, Quansah's going to have the hardest, position to potentially displace alongside Mo Salah. Alongside Mo Salah and Ali, it's probably those are the three hardest positions for anybody, not let alone Jarell Quansah, but for anybody to be able to displace, best goalkeeper, best right winger, and arguably the best centre back out there. You're not going to displace these guys anytime soon. So then how does that development look, moving forward? What happens if Liverpool get knocked out of the Carabao Cup? That's, one competition down. You get knocked out of the FA Cup. That's another competition down. Now the amount of games that you're playing starts to run thin. Now you're looking at it thinking, do you know what I mean? How many games am I realistically going to play between now and the end of the season? Again, that might be a conversation they have in January. If Liverpool do get knocked out of the FA Cup, that might be something he talks about, with Klopp in terms of, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe goes out on loan. I'm not advocating for that, if you guys understand what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that might be, as a football player, you want to play all the time, especially when you've been playing and stuff like that. Another team in the Premier League may look at Quansah and say, nah, we need him. I don't know, a Luton or whoever. Do you know what I mean? Might just look and say, nah, we can guarantee him games in the Premier League. That might be good for him. Do you know what I mean? Between now and the end of the season. But again, that's all further on down the line. At the moment, if we're just looking at it right now, as of today's date, I think Quansah's doing really, really well. I think he's embedded himself into the first team squad really, really well. Better than other players have done, if I'm being honest, better than the Joneses and stuff like that, the Harvey Elliott's, in my opinion anyway. I feel like he's kind of come in and you're almost like, when a fully fit and a firing Liverpool are there, you still have a claim to play. Might not be in the left centre-back position, but it could be in the right side of centre-back position. Long may it continue. Long may it continue. And that's why I wanted to ask you guys, just really in a general sense, just how far do you think that this guy, can go, in terms of just the level of player? I think, and again, this is all just off the cuff kind of thing. Like I said, we don't know. But if I was to think about it, then I think he could really hit the heights, man. I think his international prospects, once Gareth Southgate leaves anyway, his international prospects will start to soon skyrocket if, obviously, again, things continue in the way that they're going, for him. He's still playing and stuff like that. I think, then he'll be in and around, if not in the England squad, not too far away, to be honest. Obviously, I know they've got the Euro 2024 and stuff like that. So maybe not now, maybe not anytime soon, unless there's a mad injury crisis and stuff like that. And England are desperate for someone to just come in. But I mean, maybe just after that tournament, that's where we'll start to see he might start getting introduced into that first team squad, and stuff like that. A bit like a Rico Lewis kind of situation. I think we may have that because he's been able to, get himself an England debut and stuff like that. Obviously, fantastic player as well. So, these guys, they deserve it, ultimately. And I think Jarell Quansah, he can really hit those heights. And it'll be, like I said, it's just going to be interesting to see how this development continues. I'm really going to be watching Klopp with a close eye in terms of how he develops someone like a Quansah. I know everyone's like, oh, because usually with Liverpool, it's like we don't produce a mass of good players in the academy. But I think someone mentioned it. I saw it on social media. I can't remember who. When we do produce a player, they are usually quite good. Now, you've got Steven Gerrard. In terms of recent history, you've got Steven Gerrard, and you've obviously got Trent Alexander-Arnold. Then after that, you've then obviously got Curtis Jones. Now, obviously, Curtis Jones isn't of the level of a Trent Alexander-Arnold or a Steven Gerrard. Obviously, that's understandable. That's absolutely fine. But I guess he's a player who's been able to kind of get himself in and around the first team, and become a fixture, in this side. And I think that's probably the most important thing is when you do have these young players. Obviously, in my opinion, I don't think we have enough of those type of players who could potentially be a fixture. Like we don't seem to produce those kind of players. It always seems to be, this guy's got to be unique. He's got to be amazing and stuff like that, Whereas I always feel like with some other academies anyway, they're still able to produce players who could be a fixture in the side, may not be good enough, so to speak, but you can sell on for God knows however much money kind of thing. A bit like how much we could have, like how much we sold a Rian Brewster for, you know, players we are like, maybe good, but maybe just not good enough for here right now, kind of thing. So maybe if we sell you, blah, a bit like a Chelsea kind of vibe, you know, where they've been able to do that with various amount of players. That's what I would like to see more, kind of thing, because I feel like we've got just a lot of players. People are excited about this guy, the Scanlons, excuse me, the Scanlons, Nyonis, obviously he's just coming from Leicester City. Look, we're all excited for these guys, but are they ever going to be good enough where we can either put them into the first team squad or we can sell these guys? Like, do they always have to be some unicorn type of player? You know, kind of, those are fantastic. I'm not complaining at that. That is fantastic, but sometimes just produce a player. Do you know what I mean? You know, and then see where we can kind of go. But that then comes down to the manager and how he develops these kind of players. He's definitely had more players from the academy who have not made it and done nothing with their careers or nothing really for Liverpool, you know, where we could have benefited from either their sale or their performances, than he has players who have come into the first team squad and stuff like that. So maybe in this Klopp 2.0 that everyone keeps talking about, maybe that's what we're going to start seeing, you know, in the future, because that is so vitally important, you know, moving forward, especially for a club that's doesn't really want to go out there and spend too much money, you know, buying a centre half, for example. We want to hope that we can get a Jarell Quansah in there. Like, you know, if that's what we're trying to do and that is the game plan, then cool, whatever. That, like, I'm not going to argue with you about that. But then you need to start then either giving these guys game time or producing better players. You know, if not both. So we'll wait and see, man. We'll wait and we shall see. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section in regards to Jarell Quansah. How far do you think he can go? How impressed with him have you been, you know, this season, in the performances that he's had? Obviously, so how impressed have you been? Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you share. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I'm G. That's today's video done and dusted, and we are out.